I love space. In elementary school, I gobbled up books on astronomy and science like candy, and I was always blurting out facts about the surface temperature of Venus, or the age of the universe, or dark matter, as if I had any conceptual grasp on those things. Eventually, music came to be substituted for astronomy as my primary obsession when I began taking piano lessons in fifth grade. This obsession grew so large in time, I began pursuing music professionally and academically. But the sun, moon, and planets and stars still sit up there in the sky, and I've never quite let go of my fascination with what's beyond this nanoscopic little sliver of the universe I call home. I kept playing piano throughout middle and high school. In seventh grade, I began studying under Catherine McMichael, a teacher, pianist, and composer active in my hometown of Saginaw, Michigan. My parents and I endearingly call her my piano mom, because under her tutelage I truly began blossoming in music. The ideas Catherine taught me about how to learn music, technique to play it well, music theory to know what I was playing, and imagination to visualize a story, a dramatic arc that a piece journeys through. These are all roots of musicianship that I've kept close ever since learning them from her. I played a handful of Catherine's compositions and arrangements while studying with her. A piano duet called Ultimate Chopsticks comes to mind. But I was never cognizant of the fact that hers were the sole works by a female composer that I was playing, or that were I studying under a different teacher, the likelihood of my playing works by women composers would have lessened further. It wasn't until my senior year of high school where the first sparks of awareness in whose music I was playing came to be lit. I was attending Interlochen Arts Academy, and my piano professor assigned me a piece by Clara Schumann, a 19th century pianist and composer. The piece was a set of variations on a theme by her husband, the composer Robert Schumann, whose works are standard repertoire in the classical music world and played constantly. But hearing and studying the way Clara spun out idea after idea from the theme was immensely satisfying to learn and play. Performing her music, there emerged in me some sense of duty, that it was important that her wonderful music was played more frequently, especially in a music sphere where I barely knew of her existence until I was 8 years of study in. After graduating from Interlochen, I found my way to BGSU, which, unbeknownst to me when I got here, is a major hub for contemporary classical music in the United States. We're literally home to the Mid-American Center for Contemporary Music. It's based in the music building on this campus. And no time of year is this hub more prevalent than mid-October, when the Bowling Green New Music Festival occurs, bringing in hundreds of composers, performers, and spectators to perform and listen to music written in the past 50 years. My professors told me, you never forget your first new music festival. And I can say for myself, this is remarkably true. My freshman year, one of the featured composers of the festival was Sarah Kirkland Snyder, a composer whose style is expressive and lyrical and haunting and even at times rapturous. I was smitten. Hearing many of her pieces at my first deep dive into contemporary music was a loud signal that there were myriad lesser-known composers whose brilliant music was out there for treasuring, if only one should seek it out. And so I sought them out. My searches into non-standard piano repertoire were greatly enhanced by decades of research into women composers that I could dive into, and plenty of internet sources bearing the fruit of this research. There are some resources I should mention here, as they were my doorways to finding some incredible composers. I would encourage others interested in underrepresented composers throughout music history to consult these resources and find your own hidden gems to spread awareness of. First is the International Music Score Library Project, or IMSLP, an online database gathering all public domain musical scores and making them available free of charge. They currently have over 22,000 composers and nearly 180,000 pieces in their catalog. Sifting through the massive amounts of information on this site is actually quite painless. You can navigate through the composers based on gender, nationality, time period, and other criteria. The site currently has 1,135 women composers. Just 5% of the total composers on the database. This major discrepancy is the work of centuries of systematically repressing women's creative voices, a repression we're only now beginning to truly steer away from, giving more women composers regular recognition in classical music. Another important database for my research has been Oxford Music Online, which has a list of women composers by time period dating back to the early 8th century CE. I've read through many composer biographies on this site, looking for works that maybe haven't made it to IMSLP yet. I should also mention the Hildegard Publishing Company, whose mission is to seek out and publish the music of women composers. I've encountered their publications before numerous times, such as their amazing anthology of piano music by Black women composers, or their expansive catalog of works by Hildegard von Bingen, the 12th century abbess, author, and composer who the publishing company named themselves after. Their complete catalog covers all eras of classical music and strives for national and ethnic diversity. In all of this research, I've found a common narrative in the lives of works by underrepresented composers. In countless instances, their music is highly acclaimed at their premieres or even during the composer's lifetime. But after their passing, their music stops getting played as performers forget them and turn back to the safe, tried and true standard repertoire. I can speak as a composer that it is very easy to constantly compare and be compared to the composers who came before me. This pressure is especially true in situations like what I just mentioned, where even though a piece might be enthusiastically received at its premiere, it is exceedingly difficult for the piece to stay in the realm of performance when the classical music world is so thoroughly steeped in the music of yesterday. The overbearing emphasis on the master composers, who were all white males of European descent, is so strong that there's barely any room for new flavors. Classical music is a smoky, stuffy room urgently in need of fresh air. I believe this fresh air will come soon in the form of a new large-scale reckoning on what music gets played, taught, and recorded en masse. This is far from a new sentiment, of course, since at least the previous century, classical music has slowly attempted to increase the awareness of underrepresented composers. The progress has been slow, and the oldest major establishments, the orchestras, the opera houses, and even the universities, have all aided to slow the progression of this musical reckoning. I see hope, though, in the waves of social reckoning currently underway around us. In our society, we are learning to listen to a more diverse range of voices than ever before, and I think this listening can easily carry over to other musical areas. If classical music is to stay present and not fade into tone-deaf obscurity, fresh voices and experiences must be allowed to blossom and flourish in this community. In my own young journey to encourage fresh air into this stuffy room, I recently had the amazing opportunity to commission a composer to write a piece for me. I immediately knew I wanted to commission a composer of underrepresented background. I went back and forth for months, making lists of composers and narrowing them down, only to add more names back onto the lists. Throughout this research, though, I always had an inclination that there was one composer who I know quite well, and who knew me quite well, that would be a perfect match, above all others, for my first commission. You remember Catherine McMichael, my former piano teacher. Since I moved on from her teaching, we've been dear friends, and we keep in regular contact. She's written extensively for piano, but mainly in the context of chamber music, duos and trios, etc., and pedagogical pieces for young students. I loved the idea of giving her the opportunity to write an expansive, virtuosic piece for solo piano, and wonderfully, I had the funds to do it. So I brought up my idea to her, and she was enthralled. We discussed what the piece's theme would be. Catherine knows a performer is at their best when playing music on a subject they're passionate about. I was in an astronomy course at the time, rediscovering my old love of space, but with a new appreciation for things I didn't quite understand as well when I was a child. Catherine and I began talking about stars and other celestial objects. She quickly latched on to the wonder I had for the subject, and even dove into some astronomy studying herself. She found strong inspiration in the journey stars take from their nebulous births to their long lives as shining beacons to, for some stars, their violent deaths in supernovae, which then become fresh nebulas, allowing the entire cycle to begin anew. She anchored on to this story, this dramatic arc for the resulting piece to journey through. What about all my research, then? Doesn't it seem like a waste if I didn't commission any of the composers that I didn't know before searching for one? I don't think so, in the slightest. As a performer, this research journey was a complete joyride of finding pieces that I want to perform someday. I've still found these hidden gems that I can save for the future, or tell others about and encourage them to perform these pieces. Better yet, when I encounter these pieces on other people's concerts, I'll have the great reward of knowing there are others who are doing exactly what I'm doing in all this research, looking for pieces that deserve to have fresh, blossoming lives, and giving it to those pieces. I commissioned the solo piano piece, Luminance, by Catherine McMichael, for the occasion of my senior piano degree recital, which took place on April 3rd, 2021. I had generous funding for this piece through the BGSU Hanson Music Fellowship, the Mid-American Center for Contemporary Music, and the BGSU Honors College. The piece is in 3 connected movements, telling the story of a star's life. I'm extremely fond of this piece, and I hope it reaches as many ears and concert halls as possible. This presentation will conclude with a recording of my live performance from the piece's premiere. Before that, I'd like to read Catherine's program notes to you, to give a sense of everything going into this piece, in her own words. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. From Hamlet, Shakespeare, 1603. 4 centuries after these lines were written, it's truer than ever. From dark matter to spinning quarks, discoveries about the composition of the universe continue to baffle and astound. Even our own friendly neighborhood star, the sun, has a lifespan that began and will end in cosmic dust, to be eventually regathered into a new celestial body. Luminance is about that cycle of creation, destruction, and rebirth. The first movement, Nebula, depicts the birth of every star, a cloud of interstellar dust that coalesces into a hydrogen-burning furnace. Main sequence is the term used to describe stars in the next stable phase of continuous burning. we see them in the night sky. That is the status of our sun, which gives everything on our planet life. This movement is about a simple sunny day with an awakened sense of awe for the random blessing of the Earth being a Goldilocks planet in just the right place to create and support life. It is worth a moment of reflection that the writing of this piece, the performance of it, and our being alive and able to hear it is a direct result of the incredible luck of the perfect distance of our Earth to the sun. Eventually, after billions of years, stars burn all their fuel and die. Some, like ours, will balloon to a red giant and then collapse to a white dwarf. Much larger stars die in a spectacular fashion through a series of cataclysmic compressions. The day comes when they explode catastrophically. Supernova, the third movement, attempts to portray the dramatic culmination of a star's being as it returns to the state of sparkling debris known as cosmic dust, to be regathered into the next newborn star. Please enjoy this performance.